everybody. Welcome to the Women in Retail Talks. I'm Melissa Campanelli, co-founder of the Women in Retail Leadership Circle, and today I'm joined by Eva Press, who's the Vice President, U.S. Global Business Group for CPG Health and Retail at Facebook. In her role, Eva and her teams focus on partnering with large, complex, traditional advertisers to navigate the disruptions that are shaping the marketing landscape. I'm excited today because Eva's going to be discussing what she's hearing from her retail clients about how COVID-19 is impacting their businesses, changes she's seen in terms of consumer behavior, how Facebook is partnering with retailers to adjust these new consumer habits and expectations, and more. So thanks for joining me today, Eva.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Great. So let's just get into it. I'm going to start, as I usually do here at Women in Retail Talks. I'd love to learn a little bit about your background and your career path, and how kind of you became a leader in Facebook.
Yeah, so it's funny, if you look at the path of my career now, it all seems like it was sort of part of some big master plan. But the reality is that I was really following the things that interested me, and I was always looking for challenges and opportunities that pushed me to learn and to grow new skills, and also looking for the opportunity to work with really great and smart people. And so I always loved marketing and advertising growing up. I was the girl who knew the jingle for every single product. And then I also loved theater. And so I started my career working at an ad agency for Broadway. And then after about 5 years, realized I wanted to be the one making decisions about marketing overall, not just developing media plans and creative. And so went back and got my MBA. And then coming out of that program, at that time, the best training programs for marketing and for general management were at the CPG companies. And so I went and spent 10 years at Kraft Foods, now Mondelez, working on wonderful brands like Honey Made Graham Crackers and Planters Nuts and Oreo cookies. And as I was leading the US Oreo business, I saw that there was this really interesting new space opening up in social media. And it seemed like it had the potential to be a really big marketing channel and way for brands to connect with people. And so I came to Facebook, figured I'd be here for a couple of years. I'd figure out this whole social media thing and go back to CPG. And 8.5 years later, here I am, still learning, still growing. And it's been really, really great. In terms of leadership, because you asked about that piece too, again, this job is very much the culmination of everything I've done for my entire career, because I've worked on the agency side, I've worked on the client side, now I'm on the media side, I've worked on retail teams from the vendor side, I've partnered with retailers here, I sit on the boards of the National Retail Federation, and also if she runs it. So this conversation is obviously incredibly meaningful to me and something that I'm very passionate about. And the one other thing I'll say in terms of leadership is that the consistent thing that I've had and been fortunate to have in my career have been people around me who have encouraged me and pushed me to go after that next big opportunity and supported me as I made the case to take on that next leadership role.
That's so fascinating. I'm a huge fan of She Runs It. I didn't realize you were on that board, and they're doing so much great stuff right now, actually. I've been following, so I think that's fantastic. And the NRF, obviously, we're partners with them as well, so that's awesome.
Sure.
So one thing that I wanted to talk about, is although I'm somewhat kind of tired talking about it, but I know it's important, is COVID-19 and sort of what everyone's feeling right now. I know you speak with a lot of retailers daily. What are you hearing from your clients or from your contacts about how COVID-19 is affecting their businesses?
Yeah, I mean, retail is one of the hardest hit by COVID-19, and causing these massive shifts that are almost certainly going to have long-term impact. And so we work with partners across every part of the industry, from grocery to furniture to fashion to luxury, everything in between. And every one of those categories is facing its own challenges, but also its own opportunities as a result of this pandemic. And so our goal is to be strategic partners to them, no matter which part of the business or what challenges they're facing. And what we're seeing right now is this sort of bifurcation over the past couple of months. And there are the retailers like the grocery stores, the drugstores, the mass merchants, and they've remained open and they are selling these essential goods with their employees very much on the front lines of the pandemic. And so we're helping them with the massive hiring that they're doing to meet the huge increases in demand and in foot traffic. But we're also thinking about how do we help them communicate, the essential information about modified store hours and when essential products are going to be back in stock, and helping them think through all the priorities that have shifted to focus on how do they put the health of their customers and of their store associates first. And so what that means is that sometimes they have to think through what are new ways for customers to shop, to promote social distancing, and they're leaning into online delivery and contactless curbside pickup at this really fast pace. Another thing I'm very proud of that we've done to support and partner with these retailers is working with the National Retail Federation to drive awareness of job openings across the retail industry. And so over the course of a month across both Facebook and Instagram, we reached over 13 million people and were able to drive 3,800 page views of the NRF's COVID-19 jobs landing page to really help bridge that gap between people who need jobs and the retailers who are still open and trying to support their customers and keep the stores stocked. So that's what we're hearing and doing on the sort of side of the business that is still open. On the other side, there are the retailers who have had to close their stores, and they have a very different set of challenges, and those challenges are creating this huge risk, right? And here again, they're thinking about how do they pivot quickly to focus on e-commerce. But we know that still doesn't make up for all of the lost store sales. And we know inventory liquidation is going to be a concern because their spring merchandise is sitting locked in stores, and they have this added uncertainty about when stores will open. But I think the even greater uncertainty that we're all thinking about right now is, what does shopping even look like after this, right? What does it mean to try on clothes or makeup or pick out home goods when stores start to reopen? And I'll say, even through all of this and all of the challenges that are being faced by the industry, I've been really inspired and proud about how brands and retailers are responding. We've seen fashion brands pivoting so that they are making masks. We've seen the large retailers think about how to reuse their parking lots to make them into COVID-19 testing centers. And the way that they're thinking about how to protect and care for their employees through all of this and for their customers has just been a really clear example of the creativity, the perseverance, the resilience of this industry, which is why I'm so passionate about it.
That's fantastic. Great information. I'm specifically interested in the work that you're doing with NRF about their job list, because I know that I've been hearing a lot about how that's been getting a lot of great results with folks getting jobs and stuff. So that's fantastic. And you did we've talked about the consumer behavior changes, and we talked a little bit about how Facebook is partnering, but can you talk a little bit more about how maybe you're partnering with retailers to address some of these new consumer habits and expectations?
Yeah, we've talked, I think, a little bit about both of those questions. I think, look, the reality is that right now people are forming new habits and behaviors, and some of them are going to last and some of them are going to be more fleeting. We want to make sure that we're helping retailers think through how to adapt to both of them, but particularly the ones that are going to be around for the long term. And so, one of the things we're seeing is people say they're spending more time on their smartphones. They said they're spending 29% more time online shopping. None of that's a surprise. We've all read those headlines. I could throw out no more numbers. That's not the interesting part. The part that's really interesting is that the current shelter-in-place directives are accelerating this trend that we thought was going to take 3 to 5 years, and it's happening in 3 to 5 months. And that's that move toward online shopping. Coming into this year, the big focus for us in our conversations and partnerships was around driving store traffic and around driving foot traffic. But what we're seeing now is the bigger need, and one that we do think is going to be longer term, is this need to drive what we call sort of near store traffic, which is around delivery, it's around buy online, pick up in store, and it's around contactless curbside pickup. Because people are telling us they're anxious about stores reopening. They're anxious about being around crowds of people. So as retailers are rethinking their stores from this trend of the past few years, which has been about how do we make our stores interactive? How do we make them destinations? Now it's about how do we make our stores essentially really great distribution centers. And part of that we're thinking through with them is what are the advantages of still having that brick and mortar location, which we do believe that there are a lot of advantages in terms of convenience and in terms of ability to do returns and exchanges relatively easily. So how do we communicate that? And then the other thing from a consumer behavior, people are finding, hey, you know what? Online shopping is actually pretty easy and it's pretty convenient. So we'll probably keep doing that. And the last thing that we're hearing, and this may be a little bit more sort of short to midterm, but people are having to navigate differences in their local markets and what's open versus what's closed, what's happening with store hours, what's happening with inventory. Everything is suddenly local. And so that means that as the shelter-in-place guidelines ebb and flow, stores have to be able to adapt and be flexible. And so the idea of being able to have a single national message about promotions, about store openings, about inventory, just may not be possible anymore. And so given that, we're thinking through how do we help retailers communicate local store hours, which stores are open, which ones are doing curbside pickup, what are localized promotions, how do we make sure that it's also the most recent and most current information so their customers have what they need in order to do the shopping that they want to.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear that retail customers will probably be working with Facebook differently from now on. I mean, even as the economy slowly gets back to normal, I still feel like behaviors have changed for the, sort of forever, for the foreseeable future. So given that, I mean, do you have any tips or best practices around how retailers should leverage Facebook now and, to meet their goals or their customers' needs going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, there are a couple of things that are really top of mind for us as we're thinking about how to advise and partner with retailers right now. The first is around brand and top of mind awareness. And the second goes back to that idea of flexibility and local that I've talked a little bit about. And so in terms of brand and being top of mind, people need to understand what the retailer is doing right now. Research is showing us that 2/3 of people say their likelihood for shopping for a brand in the future is impacted by how that brand is responding to the current crisis. So retailers have to be connecting with customers right now. And they have to be doing that based on, this is where it gets hard, they have to do that based on where consumers are from a mindset perspective at any given moment. And so the flexibility and the ability to move quickly becomes really important. And thinking through the formats, because even the content that people are creating or consuming is evolving. Formats like stories, short form, quick consumption are growing, but we've also seen that in-stream is growing, and which is our sort of longer form video platform. One of the really interesting things has been the growth of live streams over the past couple of months. And we now have over 800 million people engaging with live stream every day on our platforms. And I'll share a quick example of a retailer that's doing an interesting thing here. I was talking with the owner of a small boutique in my hometown of Nashville, Tennessee, because I was buying my mom a gift card for Mother's Day. And the woman didn't know that I work for Facebook. And we were talking about what's going on with the store. And she said, I found that my customers, who tend to be a bit older, can't really engage with my website. So I've started doing a live stream fashion show regularly with my partner. And we show the clothes. And then we hear directly through the Facebook comments about which clothes people are interested in, and we're actually selling a lot of product that way. And when you think about some of the challenges right now around sort of flexibility, about staying connected, about having relevant current messaging, it's a really smart way that these women have found to engage their customers in a way that people are really looking for. So I sort of love that example of, again, that resilience and creativity coming through. I think that's sort of the brand piece, the top of mind awareness piece. I've talked a little bit about the flexibility, the hyper local, but from a practical perspective, it does mean changes in the way that retailers go to market, because it means working differently with agencies and working with influencers who can quickly create content and adapt to content, and working with local stores to really understand what's happening in that market from a inventory perspective, from a store hours perspective, even from a sentiment perspective. And again, what that means is that some of the solutions that have worked for so long, like flyers, circulars, direct mail that get printed months in advance, become a little bit less practical right now. And so, how do you think about moving quickly, being flexible, and how do you think about using platforms like Messenger or other messaging communications where we've seen that people have turned to these to get information quickly over the past few months?
Love that. The takeaway for me on that is just how creative, people are becoming right now, given this time.
Right.
Maybe you can mention the name of the store in case folks listening want to check it out.
It's Cute and Comfy Shoes, but they have clothes too.
That's great. Yeah, I just love those creative stories, and it's great that they have something like Facebook to work with to come up with
Yeah.
these kind of creative ideas. It's almost like a tool for them. Um, so jumping ahead, I can't even believe I'm saying this in June, but the holiday season is starting to become underway for many retailers, and I think it's going to be, well, it will be especially important this year. So, is there any advice you could share on how they can prepare, using Facebook or otherwise, just in terms of the holidays coming?
Yeah. Holiday is going to be different this year, no question. And I think there's still a lot of uncertainty around what that's going to look like, but there are things that we think retailers can do now. One of those things is, as stores start to reopen, really pressure testing different scenarios. Look at the businesses that have remained open and how do you emulate some of the social distancing work that they've done in stores like, department stores and fashion stores. What does curbside pickup look like when you are doing that en masse? How do you drive holiday sales if stores end up being closed or largely empty because of consumer concerns in November and December? And then one of the things that I've been talking to our partners about is really thinking through, how do you stress test your e-com platforms in advance? Black Friday and Cyber Monday historically have strained supply chains, they've strained websites, and that is likely to be exacerbated this year with uncertainty, again, around people being in stores. And so one of the things that retailers can do is find a time over the summer, over a couple of days, to really pump traffic through the e-com site and stress test, see where there are challenges, see where there's friction, and use the rest of the summer to address that before you move into code freeze. So those are a couple of things that I think retailers can start to do right now to try to prepare for a really unknown holiday season.
I would be remiss to not mention the Facebook Shops product that launched this May. I know there's been a lot of talk about it and it's been really successful. So can you share some details around it in case folks don't know, and how can they help small businesses?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this one. We've talked a little bit about the impact the crisis has had on businesses and small businesses in particular. And for a lot of them, the only way for them to stay afloat is this pivot to online sales. But that's really easy for us to say, but it requires investment and it requires resources. And so that's really where Facebook Shops have come in. people are already buying and selling on Facebook and on Instagram. So it's a natural place to turn to quickly shift to e-commerce. So a couple of weeks ago, we announced this new way for a business, any business, small or large, to set up essentially a virtual storefront for free. And the idea is that any seller, again, major global brand, small local shop, can create a customizable virtual store where you can browse products that will be curated based on your personal tastes. And then you can use Messenger or WhatsApp, which you're already using on a regular basis, to connect with a store associate and ask questions, get advice, get information. And then you can click on whatever it is that you want to buy and pay for it without having to enter new details every time. And each of those pieces, each of those actions take place within the virtual store, which really removes friction for shoppers and makes it a lot easier for them to discover and buy products. And it removes friction for retailers too, because it's all happening in one place. And it doesn't require as much setup as creating and maintaining your own website. And all of this is, a big deal because what we've seen is that people's online shopping experiences have been very much about bouncing between websites and pages and applications. And we think shopping online should be more like shopping in a physical store. And this really, Facebook Shops really enables businesses to make that happen at the time when they and their customers need it most. And so we started to roll out Facebook Shops in May in the US, and then it's going to expand to be more widely available in the coming months. And again, I'm really excited about the opportunities it opens for discovery and for shopping.
And if folks want to join, is there a website that they could go to or for Facebook Shops?
It'll be available on a rolling basis based on your location and whether or not you have some of the infrastructure in place.
Okay, perfect. Well, Ava, thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Women in Retail Talks. It was so great to talk to you and to get to know you and to learn more about what's going on in retail and Facebook. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you for the time. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks everyone for listening. For more information on this podcast, you can check out our podcast channel page at womeninretail.com/podcasts for show notes. And Women in Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. Please make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to rate and review it. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Women in Retail Talks.